What do you think should happen to the parents who participated?
What they did was illegal. They robbed other children of their spots.
The college admissions scandal rocked Hollywood with high-profile actresses like Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin implicated. Huffman now slated to go to jail for 14 days. Lori Loughlin faces trial in 2020. It's also the subject of Beyond the Headlines with Gretchen Carlson, who is joining me now. Welcome to our studio.
Thanks for having me.
What surprised you the most when you were doing this?
Well, so many things.
Yeah.
I mean, just the outrageousness of what people think that they can get away with, you know, all doing it supposedly for the benefit of their children. But I think the biggest surprise to me was these loopholes that continue to exist to allow scandals like this to be pervasive. So the biggest one in my mind is the sports one. And we saw this play out in the scandal where you would see parents making up allegedly that their kids were playing particular sports and then they were getting into college as a result of that. But here's the loophole. When they get to that institution, they don't actually have to play that sport.
Wow.
So if you actually get a college scholarship for a bigger sport like basketball or football or baseball, for example, then you do have to commit to playing the sport. But if it's something like squash or sailing or crew, in many situations, it gets you in the door, but you don't actually have to play it.
And you're a parent.
Yes.
And how did that make you feel talking to other parents, but also hearing that kind of justification of, I'm doing this for my kid?
You know, I think as a parent, you would do anything for your children. And education is supposed to be the great equalizer in our country, that we afford that opportunity ostensibly to all children in our nation. And I think that this just rips that, wide open, because while most parents would do anything for their children, the difference is when you cross over that fine line of doing something illegal. And, I think that a lot of people can relate to how parents could get themselves mixed up in this, because you do have that unconditional love for your children and you want the best for them. However, when you break the law, there are consequences. And that's what we're seeing, playing out right now. I think a lot of people have been so frustrated with this story and paying attention to it because they see it as, oh, it's the haves against the have-nots again, right? Yeah. And we always thought that this was the case, and now we're seeing it, play out. It's the entitlement, and I think that is what's been so frustrating for just the huge swath of Americans out there who also want the best for their children, but they maybe aren't the uber rich.
So, how would you describe Rick Singer?
Kind of like a car salesman, and he's kind of sleazy. He just kind of
that pressing, that journalistic eye. Do you miss that? Do you miss like the daily grind?
Well, I did that for so many years, and I'm really proud of the shows that I built up to be, in some cases, the #1 show in the time slot nationally. So there's immense amount of pride in that. But I've also enjoyed working on longer form pieces now. That's sort of a lost art in television, because everything's first and fast and, let's not invest a lot of money. And so really to be able to do documentaries where I'm spending a tremendous amount of time putting them together has been very rewarding for me. Also, the second part of it is that I've really enjoyed being out of the day-to-day grind for a particular period of time to be able to watch all of my colleagues.
So what do you watch?
Yeah, so I watch everything now. And this is what I advocate to people out there.
You watch CNN?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
You watch
I watch
MSNBC?
MSNBC, CNN, all of the network shows.
You don't watch Fox?
I do not watch Fox.
Okay.
I'm pulling for Nora O'Donnell at CBS. I hope she does great. I love Jake Tapper on CNN. He was in my last book. It's given me the ability to see how good all of my colleagues are and what they bring to the table. And at the end of the day, I hope to join them again. So I look forward to all of the amazing opportunities out there in television, because as you know, the landscape has completely changed.
Yeah, I mean, just look at where we are
exactly.
right now, right?
Look at where we are.
Is there a network that you would want to be on?
Not necessarily. I'm very open-minded, and so we're in the process of putting together tons of ideas and pitches, and that's the one thing. I'm an incredibly optimistic person. I wear this bracelet for a reason. It says "Be Fierce," and some mornings I wake up.
The name of your book?
The name of my book, and my movement. And sometimes I wake up, I'm like, I don't feel so fierce today, and then I look at the bracelet and I say, yep, we're doing another day here, and the same is true for my career.
Now, I know you can't talk about too much of your time at Fox News. It's been over 3 years since you've been away. But your life, your being has been portrayed in the movie Bombshell. What's that like, seeing you being portrayed that way, seeing, Nicole Kidman?
Yeah. One word, surreal. Never envisioned that that was going to happen. You know, when you do something like this and you step off that cliff, it takes an immense amount of courage. And farthest from my mind was that, oh my gosh, I think someday they'll make this into a movie. I mean, I thought I was just going to be sitting home crying my eyes out from being fired. How would I have ever known that there would be swift consequences for my alleged perpetrator, that there would be a movement that was started for empowering so many women across and men across the world to know that their voice matters. And so I look at these projects, even though I can't participate in them, which is frustrating.
So you can't talk to Nicole Kidman about playing? You can't?
No, it's
you can't
frustrating and strange, and it's why I'm doing so much work on Capitol Hill to try and change the laws to take away those non-disclosure agreements that women are forced to sign when they find themselves in these situations, because it's so important for women to be able to have a voice. So while it's strange and frustrating that I can't participate, I think these projects are great because it keeps the dialogue going. And in the end, what's most important is that they will encourage other women and men to know that they can come forward and they might be believed. I mean, imagine that. We've made immense progress over the last 3 years.
Since coming out publicly with your story, what do you think still has to change for women in the workplace?
Oh gosh. When I started out on this mission, I didn't realize that it was such a tangled web of so many different things that I'd have to work on. So changing the law is one of the big things. I think that's the final tipping point in this whole movement, because arbitration keeps all of this silent and handcuffs women from being able to tell people what happened to them. So that would be huge, and I'm feeling really optimistic about this bill that I've been trying to get passed for the last 3 years. But there are so many other things that need to happen. Men, who predominantly still run the majority of companies in our country, have to hire more women and pay them fairly and put them in top positions and promote them and put them in the boardroom. We have to change the way that we do harassment training in the workforce. We have to educate our young boys. That is critical. That's what I've learned, I think, the most surprising thing.
I think you've said that it's about women, but it's really about young men.
It's about young men and really getting to them, because we do a great job in our country of empowering girls, but it's really about also lifting up boys so that they respect women when they get into the workforce in the same way that they look at their mothers or their sisters or their grandmothers. That, to me, has become one of the most key ingredients in solving this problem.
What's something that someone has to get right about you if they're going to play you? Like, what's a quirk that they have to know about Gretchen if they're going to portray you?
That I'm ultra organized.
Are you really?
Yeah, I sort of, you know, every day I have a list. I have a lot of Post-it notes around everywhere. And I like to accomplish things and get things done. Maybe people wouldn't be surprised by that if they've looked at my story and they know what it took to get to the point of where I actually filed the lawsuit. But I think also that I've been underestimated my whole life, and that I may not be exactly what you think that I am, and I'm full of unexpecteds. And so whomever plays me has to really be on their toes, and not necessarily just play the anchor from Fox.
When we talk about impeachment and we talk about, you know, where we are as a country with this president, do you sit back and go, oh, I'm glad I don't have to be part of that grind right now? Or do you absorb and you want to express your voice? Like, I'm curious.
Yeah, it's both, really. I've known President Trump for 30 years.
How do you think he's doing?
I'm not going to comment on how, as a journalist, I'm not going to comment on how I think that he is doing in the office of presidency, but I will share this with you, and that is that having known him and interviewed him so many times, that he is a master marketer. And I was one of the very few journalists who, when he announced that he was running for president, that I said live on the air that he will be the Republican nominee for president. And why did I say that? Because I've seen him massage and message the American public with his show, The Apprentice. He used to come on the morning show that I used to host, and he would say, it's the #1 show on television. And I would say live right back on the air to him, no, it's not, Donald. And he would say, yes, it is, Gretchen. And I would say, okay, actually it's not. But people at home were probably watching that and saying, wow, I should really be watching the #1 show on television. And before you know it, it was the #1 show on television. And I tell that story because I think it's emblematic of how he messaged his presidential run, with messages, whether they were true or not, to the American public, and they bought in. But as far as not covering it, I've been relieved to not be caught up in the whole fake news dialogue. And I see myself as a unifier and trying to bring people together. And so that's what my
Which
documentaries
is not a role
do.
that I think people would kind of associate with you after
Right.
having, seen your broadcast career for so long. But that's like the next phase of what you're doing.
Exactly. The last 3 years have really strengthened me as an individual. I've come out of this stronger and victorious and with greater empathy for people's stories and hardships, and I want to continue to tell their stories and share that with the American public. And maybe even we could find solutions.
What else do you watch that's not news?
Oh my gosh, I have guilty pleasures.
Okay.
I do like to watch some of the housewife shows.
Oh, which ones?
Well, I
I'm a
got
big
hooked on.
Housewives fan.
I got hooked on cross country flights where they had like a marathon of the, let's see, the Orange County ones and the New York ones. So I'm definitely liking both of those. I love to watch Dateline and 48 Hours and 2020 and those kind of investigative pieces that are real life sort of crimes. And I think that's why I really was a good fit to do these documentaries, because they are the real life stories behind big, huge news stories that the American public is fascinated with.
What do you think should happen to Lori Loughlin and the other parents implicated in this? I mean, we're starting to hear how they're being sentenced, they're facing trial. But what do you think should happen?
I know, I always wanted to be a lawyer. I actually took the LSATs and then I just never made it to law school. But because I'm not a lawyer, I can't be a prognosticator as to what's going to happen to her. Mm-hmm. She obviously has decided to plead not guilty at this point in time. But I just saw a fascinating interview yesterday with the prosecutor in this case. And he was saying that if you're seeing jail time for people who have pled guilty, then it doesn't look good for Lori Loughlin.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see.